So I was going to bed when I ran across this video.
All video games need easy mode.
Now the whole video is from Omni, and his channel honestly is a guilty pleasure of mine. But the question is, do all video games need an easy mode? Now that video um of that woman, that I don't know where that video came from. I can't find it. I can't find the original video. If I do, I'll link it down. Um, she goes on into more detail about why she wants an easy mode, mainly because her everyday life doesn't allow her to play difficult games. She specifically mentions Hollow Knight, and I just moved my camera. She specifically mentions Hollow Knight, and you know how she doesn't have the time to be able to go and beat the side bosses because they're too difficult. We're gonna talk about this because there's a lot to break down, and then I can go lay down and go to sleep for a little bit. So, do all games need easy mode? I'm going to leave that question for you guys to answer down in the comment section. And I'm going to give you my opinion on this matter. I do not believe that all video games need an easy mode. And there's a few reasons why. Because, one, it takes away from the artistic direction that the game designers put in for that game. Like for games like Getting Over It or even Hollow Knight, for example. Games such as Metroidvania style games start off easy and they progress as your skills progress in that specific game. That's just how they are. That's how they're developed. And I understand that it can be difficult after a time. Hell, it took me a long time to beat the final boss in Hollow Knight. It happens. That's just how it goes. I also believe it's a generational thing. Depending on when you grew up with video games, right? So like if you grew up early with video games, and I mean like I'm talking about like Atari and the NES, for example, those games didn't hold your hand back then. They were some of the most difficult games you could ever play, specifically on the NES, the Nintendo. And indirectly games like games on the Sega Genesis, on the Super Nintendo as well. And that's just how they were developed. A lot of those games don't have easy modes. Like you look at Super Mario Brothers, right? Like the original Super Mario Brothers, there is no easy mode. Super Mario World, no easy mode. Going to like let's say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the NES, there's no easy mode, and that's considered one of the more difficult games. Mike Tyson's Punch Out. You get the idea. Like those games have no easy mode to them. That's just how they are. They get progressively difficult as you play through those games. Now, if you're talking about a game that is single player and story driven, like heavily story driven, I can make that argument that it probably should have a single player game. Games like Hollow Knight or Metroidvania style games that don't really tell the story straight up in your face. They tell the story sprinkled throughout. Most of the time you play those games, you're not really playing them specifically for story. You're playing those games more so for the gameplay aspects of things. Those games, I would say, no, we don't need an easy mode in them. This is a very difficult fine line thing, and I'm not trying to be like, some snooty elite gamer or anything like this, because there's games that I haven't beaten because they're overtly difficult, like Dark Souls, for example, or Demon Souls. I've not beaten those games. They're massively difficult, and they're, I came to to peace with myself that I don't have the time in my day to put into a game like that. I just really don't. I have kids, I have work, I have my YouTube stuff, live streaming. I don't have the time to just sit down and play Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, things like that. I can't do it. But I respect the fact that that's how those games are made. And Demon Souls in particular, the worse that you do, the harder the game becomes. And that brings us to another argument here. I mean, adaptive difficulty. Adaptive difficulty is a thing. Now, could you make an argument that adaptive difficulty should be in place into pretty much every game with an option to turn it off? Yes. Oh God, yes. I think that would solve a lot of the issues. Adaptive difficulty, if you don't know what that is, adaptive difficulty basically makes it so the worse that you do in a game, the easier the game becomes. And I think that would solve a lot of the issues that people might have if a game is too difficult. So say for example, Resident Evil 4 is a perfect example of adaptive difficulty. I think that was one of the games that took adaptive difficulty to a way that made it so, or that made it in a way that it was very noticeable. So adaptive difficulty in Resident Evil 4, the worse that you do in throughout the game, the easier it becomes in ways that, like, they'll remove enemies. They will change the weapons that the enemies have. There's specific hallway scenes, for example, or specific areas where there will be, like, say four enemies in place, and if you're having trouble in that area, then when you die, instead of 4 enemies, maybe there's 2. And you'll notice it. You'll notice it straight up. They will straight up remove the enemies. Resident Evil 2 Remake, for example, has adaptive difficulty to it. And in that one, it'll make zombies easier to kill. They're less likely to grab you. They will do less damage to you. You will take less damage. And yes, there is a difference between taking less damage and having less damage done to you. So it'll change all of those variables within the game. And so adaptive difficulty would immensely help in this kind of situation. And I think would be a lot more acceptable as opposed to just straight up putting in easy mode, because then again it adapts to your play style of the game. Now in, again, a game like Resident Evil 4, once you beat it and you unlock professional mode makes the game harder, and I believe it removes the adaptive difficulty aspect of things. Same thing in Resident Evil 2 Remake. If you put hardcore mode, it'll remove the adaptive difficulty. So having the ability to remove the adaptive difficulty is a bonus to it. Another thing to do at that point is maybe make modifiers. So difficulty modifiers you could get unlocked once you beat the game the first time, and then if the players that want a more difficult experience, you have that option to do so. Because the thing is, like, I don't like to play through a game and then find it overly easy and then complain that it's too easy. I've had that happen many times, and I don't like that personally. That's a complaint that I have, like, for Persona 5, for example. I find Persona 5 to be the easiest Persona game there is. And that's one of the reasons why I fault it, because it's just overly easy. Same thing with this one back here, Resident Evil 3 Remake, I find overly easy. Now, Resident Evil 3 Remake rectifies that by adding I think a nightmare difficulty and an inferno difficulty. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm yawning too much. I'm tired. I want to go back to sleep. But I feel like adaptive difficulty would be a very acceptable way of meeting sort of in the middle ground for this type of situation. But let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. Do all games need an easy mode? I do not fault people for wanting to play on easy mode. In fact, I would say if you just want to just play through a game and it has an easy mode, by all means do it. I won't. I avoid easy modes unless I'm trying to speed run something, just for fun. But that's what I use the easy modes for. But if you want to use an easy mode, by all means do it. I won't hold it against you or anything like that. It doesn't affect me. But I don't feel like every game should have an easy mode. But that's my opinion. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. And hit the like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. Until then, everybody, happy gaming.